After the last 2 decades, there should be no surprises about who turns to a career in politics. In 2025, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith became the newest public figure with zero political experience to express interest in running for president. Smith's dream of the Oval Office was short-lived, as recently he told conservative commentator Sean Hannity that he would not be running for president, saying, "If I have to give up my money, it's not happening." Anyone who's familiar with Smith's work in sports media should know exactly how delusional his political aspirations are, but also understand why this bizarre saga makes perfect sense in the 2026 political sphere. As outrageous as it sounds, we shouldn't be surprised that this was a conversation. Before I get into his political aspirations, I want to highlight how Smith operates in sports media. A Winston-Salem State University graduate, Smith has spent the last 3 decades climbing his way up the ladder in sports media. In 2025, Smith signed a 5-year, $100 million contract with ESPN. Stephen A. Smith has become the face of sports media over the last decade. His boisterous personality has been the backbone of his show, First Take. Over time, First Take has shifted the culture at ESPN from genuine coverage of sports to hot takes and sensationalized hypotheticals that lack any structured commentary or analysis. Too often, subjects of debate are, who's under more pressure, player 1 or player 2? Or, did Team 1 lose the game, or did Team 2 win the game? Over the years, as Smith's stars continued to rise, it seems as if his priorities in journalism have shifted. During the 2025 NBA Finals, Smith was caught playing solitaire on his phone during the game he was supposed to be covering. How can people trust your opinion on sports if you're not watching the game? Unsurprisingly, Smith didn't care and went to Twitter to defend himself, only to be called a liar by a community note. Shortly after, Smith got a sponsorship with a solitaire app. Smith's ego has shown to be a problem in his coverage of sports. In early March, when discussing the New Orleans Pelicans, Smith claimed that he's bigger than the Pelicans organization. "I'm at the top of the heap in this profession, and getting paid for it, by the way. And by the way, my popularity is more than anybody you got on your team outside of Zion Williamson. Again, not throwing any shade at the players, I'm just giving you facts." Inserting himself into the center of a story derails any point he's trying to make. There are plenty of things to criticize the Pelicans for. Some of those things Smith had already covered in this segment, but going on an ego trip is lazy analysis. What does claiming you're bigger than the players do for the sport? This isn't a one-time thing for Smith, but rather a pattern of egotistical behavior. Also in March, Smith responded to criticism from Knicks guard Josh Hart with a bizarre podcast rant. "First of all, you don't know who I know. Secondly, you don't know who talks to me. Thirdly, you don't even know how close I am to the people who cut your checks. Josh Hart, clearly you haven't done your homework." Pointing out your stardom as a journalist and a commentator is egregious. Instead of acting as a journalist, Smith acts as a showman. The quality of Smith's work in recent years has revolved around bringing players down to gain viewership. Whether it's players like Russell Westbrook or Kevin Durant, Smith consistently has a target of his attacks that's the subject of his show for weeks at a time. Instead of analyzing the game, Smith only knows how to operate out of negativity. His platform has become so large that he's rewarded from his lack of substance and critical thought. His negativity only builds hatred for the sports that he covers. First Take is a snow globe of negativity that's shook with every asinine take from Smith. Unfortunately, Smith's popularity has helped build the current culture of sports media that prioritizes hot takes and surface-level analysis. Sports are presented to fans in a way that's disrespectful to their intellect. It's like what Cocomelon is for children. It's like if WWE had a debate night. It's like how politics is presented by mainstream media outlets. The enigma that is Stephen A. Smith is so complicated because of the fact that it's hard to understand what he actually believes. In his sports coverage, Smith seems to say anything controversial that'll generate views and clicks. Instead of prioritizing nuanced discussion, his show is filled with rapid conversation that leads nowhere. When Smith announced his interest in running for president, I immediately wondered what his core beliefs are. Although before I even heard them, I had trouble believing anything that would come out of his mouth simply because of how he operates in the media, saying whatever gets him the most attention. There's only one thing that I know for certain that Stephen A. Smith believes in: himself. Unfortunately, that makes Stephen A. Smith the perfect candidate in a climate that prioritizes sound bites and division while pushing anti-intellectualism. Through all this, it shouldn't be a surprise that a famous man who understands the current media landscape, the attention economy, would want to run for president. A pattern in U.S. politics throughout history, and more specifically the last 12 years, has been selecting public figures and celebrities to run for office. Donald Trump was promoted as the political outsider who represented the silent majority. Dr. Oz, Caitlyn Jenner, and more have all run for political office despite having no experience. RFK Jr. is now the Secretary of Health and Human Services despite not having a medical degree. The rise of anti-intellectualism has propagated the idea that anyone can be in office as long as they have enough eyes on them. Instead of supporting people who are passionate about creating a better world, people would rather bring up the idea of someone at the stature of Oprah Winfrey or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson running for office. While making this video, reality TV star Spencer Pratt announced his candidacy for the mayor of Los Angeles. When I first heard he was running, I had to do a quick YouTube search to make sure I was thinking of the right guy. One of the first videos to pop up was Spencer Pratt's top 6 meltdown moments from The Hills. Just because someone is charismatic and understands how the media works does not mean that they should be considered a viable candidate for political office. Charisma and hot takes only gets you so far. Eventually, when the candidate holds office, charisma is not the tool you can use to do a good job. Just because someone is an easy candidate to run based on their stature in entertainment or media doesn't mean they'll become someone that's good for society. More than anything, they're a person that will be easy for political backers to manipulate because of their insatiable appetite for fame, power, and money. In this way, Smith was the perfect candidate to run. Smith's lack of consistent opinions, his ability to pander, his appetite for power, his uncontrollable ego, all align with someone pursuing a political career. It shouldn't be a surprise that someone like this would want to run for office. It's a sign of how far we've fallen that this makes perfect sense. Just how ESPN's sports coverage is insulting to the intellect of the viewer, most political candidates' actions are insulting to the intellect of the voter. Just because you laugh at the guy on TV that yells about Kevin Durant all the time doesn't mean he should be someone to make decisions for your future. In my opinion, Smith walks away from his political era happy because of the headlines he made in the process. His ego was placated from people taking him seriously outside of the sports world, even if just for a moment. I believe you should never give attention to Stephen A. Smith and his wild statements as it only feeds his ego, but I think his delusion is fascinating to say the least. I think there's a lot of comparisons to be made in both sports media and politics. Unfortunately, in both worlds, Stephen A. Smith is the blueprint.